folks. Welcome to a podcast about Catholic things. This is Eric, the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with
Dan, the ambassador of nonsense. Welcome, everyone.
And today we're going to talk about a subject that most people have already talked about, but we've never actually addressed it. And that is these pro-choice, pro-abortion candidates and politicians receiving communion and being patted on the head by our Pope and or Bishop. This is being prompted by the fact that last week or the week before, Joe Biden had a visit with Pope Francis, and I don't know, it was either sad or embarrassing.
Or both.
Yeah.
The headline in my Criterion newspaper for Indianapolis says, Biden says Pope told him to continue receiving communion. Now, I haven't read the article, so I don't know what the take of the Criterion on it is. That's just the headline. And, of course, they have the picture of Biden and the Pope shaking hands and looking happy and everything. Of course, part of the thing is, given Biden's mind, you can't trust what he says, even if he's sincere. And given the Pope's apparent non-interest in making sure records are set straight, for example, those interviews he keeps granting to, what's his name, Scalfari, I don't even know what to make of the story as it is.
Yeah, it's possible Pope Francis never said a word to him about being Catholic or about
or
communion. I mean,
yeah, we would never know. Pope Francis wouldn't bother to correct it, and Biden may or may not be remembering things correctly.
It seems like most of the discussion that they had needed a translator. Jill Biden was there translating as Joe Biden was talking to him. Did you watch any of the video?
No, I did not.
It was kind of weird. They do the handshakes and the pauses, and then Joe Biden gives him some kind of official gift from America. To be honest, as I was looking at what he was giving Pope Francis, I really couldn't tell exactly what it was. It looked like some kind of piece of art, but
okay.
I didn't look into what it was because I didn't really care. But, they talked for a little while, and then I assumed they had time behind closed doors. We only saw what was there being reported.
You would imagine the president visits the Pope, and maybe there's some time that's not on the, open to the press.
Of course, then there was some kind of weird rumor that Biden had gone to the bathroom in his pants while he was there, and had to change his suit before. I don't see anything that would give evidence to that, I don't know how that rumor got started, but it's kind of weird.
Maybe just someone noticed he was wearing a different suit later the same day or something.
But he wasn't. Somebody had a meme and pointed out, see, it's two different color suits. One's black, one's blue. But it was a matter of the light shining and
That's that was just stupid stuff.
So, but they presented each other with the official gifts, and then Joe Biden says, "I want to give you a coin." And he said that it's customary for presidents to give other great leaders a U.S. coin. I don't know if that's true. I've never heard of that.
Huh, I've never heard of that either.
But he said, with your permission, I want to give you this coin. He said it would commonly be given to other warriors or leaders. And he said Pope Francis was the most significant warrior for peace that he'd ever met. And it was kind of dumb. He says, I'm going to give you this coin, and it's from the state of Delaware, which my son would have wanted me to give to you because of something to do with Delaware. Maybe the unit he was with in the military was attached to Delaware. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
But you couldn't hear it real well. And then he says, the next time we meet, you better have that coin or else you're buying the drinks. He's trying to make these jokes, and they're not landing real well. They just sound stupid.
Uh-huh.
And then he says, I'm probably the only Irishman you've ever met who's never had a drink. I don't know if he meant that as a joke or if he was trying to claim that he's never drank or if it was just I don't know. It was a dumb joke if it was, but.
So was it just a Delaware coin of currency, or was it a special coin?
I imagine it was some kind of special coin.
I keep coming up with this thing called challenge coins, which are like given to like indicate membership in some organization or something like that, especially military type.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It was a special coin, I think.
Okay. It must be a challenge coin then. I bet that's what it was.
But he didn't have it wasn't like encased in anything. He was holding just a coin, he's got it, touching it with his fingers. Generally, if it was some kind of collector's item, you wouldn't touch it. Or of course, maybe it was encased. Item.
Like it wouldn't be something like these. The impression I get from reading about these like challenge coins, it's not that. Yeah. It's not that it's a collector thing. Like it, accumulates special value, and so you've got to keep it preserved for mint condition. It's more the kind of thing that once you have it, you might go find a little display stand to set it up on your mantle or something like that.
Okay. And then, as the Pope's leaving, Biden catches him again, and Jill has to come back and start translating for him again. And he starts talking about this African American who played basketball at the age of 47. And he couldn't play basketball before that because he was black. But not basketball, baseball. Oh. He had to wait until they let black people play baseball. So he pitched at the age of 47. And then he said that they were asking him, the news people were asking him about how he felt about the fact that he had pitched a game when he was that old. And Biden's telling this story, and the Pope honestly just kind of looked bored. And he looked like he's trying to maintain interest, but it's just coming off as babbling. And then the baseball player said...
looking pretty bored, too.
Yeah. Boys, that's not how I look at age. And then Biden said that the baseball player said, how old would you be if you knew how old you were? And then he started laughing at that. And again, the Pope kind of had to... looked like he was giving a kind of a fake laugh. Some kind of
poorly landed joke?
Yeah, I think... I mean, it was dumb.
I kind of don't get it.
It was like this old man, I don't even know what the hell he's talking about.
Biden babbles at the Pope.
Yeah, and you could tell by then, see, they were not expecting this, so he's not on script at this point, He's just talking, and it's like, everybody's like, oh man, come on, we got to get him out of here. But anyway, and then it was over, and then he comes out, and people are asking him questions if they talked about abortion. He said, no, the subject didn't come up. The Pope just said that he was happy that I was a good Catholic, and I could keep receiving communion. That's what it ends up being. And it's like, as Catholics, I mean, we're told that if you receive communion and you're in a state of sin, then it becomes sacrilege.
It's a separate sin. It's sacrilege, and
which is worse than most sins.
Counts to your perdition.
Now, Thomas Aquinas says something to the effect that when you receive Christ in the Eucharist, you are making a public claim to be united with Christ and with all the saints. Mm-hmm. And you're claiming that to the church and to God. Now, if you receive the Eucharist in a state of mortal sin, you are lying to Christ, and that is the sacrilege, because you're not united to Christ. You can't be if you're in a state of mortal sin.
Yeah.
Thomas Aquinas also says, now actually he's quoting St. Augustine. He says, all the fat ones of the earth have eaten and have adored. So let not the dispenser hinder the fat ones of the earth, i.e. sinners, from eating at the table of the Lord. So he's talking about priests denying people the Eucharist. And he's saying, you don't let the dispenser, the priest handing out the Eucharist, deny them from eating at the table of the Lord. So there is that. However, he also says that this is in concerning with private sins or secret sins.
Right, not manifest grave sin.
Yeah. So if the priest, catches maybe the secretary and the janitor in a bad position and knows about it, and then the next day they come up to take communion, he's not allowed to say, hey, wait a minute, you guys were doing something wrong. He can't do that.
He needs to presume that they went and found a priest somewhere to hear their confession.
Or even if he knows that they didn't.
Oh, yeah. He can't make manifest that which he knows that isn't otherwise.
Actually, I mean, he kind of even calls it a mortal sin for him to deny them. And he even addresses the idea that, maybe the priest, knowing that this guy's going to come up for communion, would not consecrate one of the hosts and then give that to him when he goes to communion. That would also be a sin.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He's not supposed to keep someone from committing that sin because it's a kind of a sin between them and God. But public sins, on the other hand, deserve some kind of public, sign that no, you can't do this. Especially,
right.
In situations like marriage and divorce and then remarriage. That's a public sin. You're letting everyone know that I'm in a state of sin. Now, is that Biden's real wife?
Oh, you know what? I have no idea. It never even occurred to me to wonder.
I don't think that's he's been divorced and remarried. That's not his real wife.
Okay.
I think. Hold on. Wives. Oh, no. No, I'm sorry.
She's first wife?
She's deceased.
Okay. Well, you'd think that would have been brought up if
Yeah.
Aside from his political sins.
Yeah. I don't know why I thought that. I knew that he had another marriage, but I don't know why I thought that it had ended in divorce. It didn't. She died, and he remarried Jill, and that is his real wife.
Okay. Well,
but
there's that at least.
Joe Biden is a supporter of abortion. That's a pretty serious thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's excommunication in some cases.
You can't support abortion either as an individual incident or publicly through supporting laws that keep it legal or make it more available without sinning gravely. And as you said, in some cases it would even be to the extent that it's tantamount to procuring an abortion, it would even be a automatic excommunication. Okay. Well, are you okay? You're still getting coffee. Well, you mentioned before about the how receiving communion unworthily is a sacrilege. This goes all the way back. This is biblical. St. Paul says in 1 Corinthians, "Whoever therefore eats the bread or drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner will be guilty of profaning the body and blood of the Lord." So we have that from the very beginning.
It's not like just something that developed in the church. It's always been this way.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. It's not even like abortion is such a big deal. You know, it's not like it's a sin. You know, like there's a lot of sins. It's not like sex, or it's not even like murder. It's more than murder. It's infanticide. I mean, it's the murder of innocent, completely helpless human beings. And Joe Biden, now, you know, there's an argument over whether or not he actually has any power, but he stands in an office that has probably more power than anyone on the planet. And he's in a better position to stop abortion than anyone on the planet, and he encourages it instead. This is a public thing. It's not like this is his own feelings. This is who he is. This is what he is. How could...
Yeah, and he's made it clear that he's not acting in some kind of weakness or uncooperatively. He's made it clear that he wants this.
Yeah. You know, I mean, politicians who are in that position, who are Catholic and are supporting abortion, have come out with this play in language where they say, well, you know, personally I'm against it, but I'm not going to interfere with a woman's right or whatever. I don't think he even does that.
No.
As far as I know, he's all for abortion.
There's somewhere I read that he claims that what he says is that he's a good Catholic, but that abortion is a private matter and therefore doesn't really count. It seems to be his argument. So I practice my faith. He doesn't actually ever say, I don't read any quotes from him that say, I personally think abortion is a horrible, wrong, sinful act. He just says, I practice my faith. And then he says, but I've never let my religious beliefs impose that view on other people, which is stupid.
Wow. Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know, that's... If a religion is not for everybody, then it doesn't count as a religion.
Yeah. So, you know, and this is just after the U.S. bishops had this conference, and they sat around and talked about whether or not they should refuse someone communion. The Pope comes out and says he loves to tout the fact that he's never denied anyone communion. So, I mean, I don't know how he gets around the words of St. Paul. Does he ever address that? You know, it's like...
yeah. What can we
St. Paul
say?
didn't matters.
Pope Francis, you're no St. Ambrose. You know, St. Ambrose was the one who denied communion to the Emperor Theodosius.
Yeah. He's no St. Francis, I'll tell you what.
No, he's not even a St. Francis.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say not even. No, I say not even because he picked that as his name. Not because St. Francis is a lesser saint by any means.
Right. And the problem is that it's not just the Pope. It's all these bishops too. And look, we have this problem in the church right now, and it's getting more and more frustrating for Catholics. And it's, you know, I kept thinking about this because as a Catholic, you kind of, I guess there's some anger developing. It's like, God, why don't you do something about this? Because it's not like we can do anything. We can't change any of this. All this garbage going on in the church. These bishops and these popes who are supporting just out and out terrible things and condemning things that there's nothing wrong with. You know, things like capitalism.
Even more frustrating. Yeah.
And I hear more and more people saying, well, you know, maybe the answer is one of the trad churches like SSPX. I hear some people talking about the one of the Orthodox churches. But I don't think that the people who do those things really believe that that's what they should be doing. I think it kind of develops in their own minds as a challenge to, or kind of an answer to God, not an answer to anyone else. An answer to God saying, look, if you're not going to clean this up, I have no reason to be in your church.
Yeah.
So,
which obviously is the wrong
if you don't
answer.
clean this up, I'm leaving, you know? And I really think that that's what's behind a lot of the people who are leaving the church because of their right-leaning beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Because everybody knows all the arguments for staying in the church. It's not like somebody, especially a right-leaning person who's going to be more knowledgeable and more conscientious. It's not like they don't have access to that knowledge and to that reasoning, to that understanding. And so, yeah, kind of stepping out is kind of like it very well could be something along the lines of, well, okay, you're kind of drawing a line in the sand for God. Well, okay, God, I'm not willing to cross this line, so if you don't somehow bring your church to me, I'm going to go somewhere else.
I do remember at one time in my life, I was having a little bit of a crisis of faith over something. I was angry at God, and it did occur to me, well, I'll stop being Christian. Mm-hmm. Of course, I wasn't going to join another church. To me, it's all or nothing. But I wasn't kind of try to pretend to be something else and be better than the Catholic. It was like, look, if this is how it is, I don't want to follow you anymore. And so that's kind of how it lined up in my brain. Of course, I never went through with that. You know, you get angry and you think weird things, and then the next day you're like, well, that was just a stupid way to think of this. But that did happen to me once. And I sincerely think that's what's going through a lot of these people's heads. I don't think they honestly believe they're going to be better off, especially going to like the Orthodox Church. Those people have already stopped being Catholic. They might seem to be more conservative, but their conservative leading is, a lot of it's more political than religious. If it was religious, they'd still be Catholic. But a lot of them have already accepted contraception and things like that. If I understand it right, the Greek Orthodox allows contraception in certain cases.
I've heard that too.
And you start slipping down that slope, and it eventually you're to abortion. And well, anyway,
you're right. It's a problem, and it's difficult. And part of the it's not a satisfying answer, but part of the thing that I always keep in mind is that God doesn't owe me a solution in my lifetime or even in my grandchildren's lifetime. The Bible is full of references to how, 1,000 years are a day come and gone to the Lord. He works in his own time. So it could very well be that some of these horrors that we're suffering through right now, when I say suffering, I don't mean us physically, but suffering, having to observe the disrespect and to the Holy Eucharist and so on and so forth. We may be in for the long haul on those. Yeah,
it's such a weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's like the Pope it's like everything that we hold dear, he either criticizes or in some way
disparages.
Yeah, and it's like, it is painful to watch this because he is technically our leader. And it's as if you have a father who everybody in the family is giving respect to, and he goes out and just badmouths everyone in the family all the time. That's kind of...
Yeah.
I don't know. That's how it feels.
Lot like that. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, the traditionalists that he is so quick to criticize are the most loyal Catholics. And they always have been. And I guess when that loyalty has been abused, people get to a point where, anyway, I guess we were going to talk about politicians receiving communion. And I guess there's not a whole lot to say on it. But we keep going off into this because it keeps happening. They keep doing it. And there's no bishops who have the backbone to say no.
Yeah, not just politicians receiving communion, but politicians being granted access to communion.
Right. This is like our...
We don't have a right to communion. We are admitted to communion. And this is even built into the canon law. For example, I'm just reading the participation in the Most Holy Eucharist. Now, it starts out, any baptized person not prohibited by law can and must be admitted to Holy Communion. But it's still be admitted to. So they don't just have a right to it. The priest admits them to it, or the bishop admits them to it. But in Canon 9:14, it's talking about children. And when they're ready and so forth, it says, it is for the pastor to exercise vigilance so that children who have not attained the use of reason or whom he judges are not sufficiently disposed do not approach Holy Communion. The pastor is supposed to keep kids who aren't disposed rightly from receiving communion. And then 9:15, which is kind of the clincher canon for these politicians who are supporting abortion and other things like that. Those who have been excommunicated or interdicted after the imposition or declaration of the penalty, and others obstinately persevering in manifest grave sin, are not to be admitted. It doesn't say that they're supposed to keep themselves out. It doesn't say that they're supposed to look inside their consciences and decide for themselves that they shouldn't approach it. It says they're not to be admitted. It's putting the burden on the priest and the bishops to refuse admittance to Holy Communion for those who are in manifest grave sin. Manifest means public, and persevering means that it's not an act that might have been a lapse of judgment or something, and now you're recovered and you're back on even keel. So, I mean, this is exactly describing Joe Biden. He's persevering
this is pretty strong language.
A manifest public sinful support for abortion. He, according to canon law, should not be admitted to Holy Communion, which means that every priest and every bishop who gives him Holy Communion is guilty of violating canon law.
They are taking part in his can't think of the word all of a sudden. They are taking part in his sacrilege. They are a part of the sacrilege by giving him communion. And that's just in canon law. On top of all of that, the Eucharist that's our worship. That's how we worship. And it's how we receive strength. Mm-hmm. It's our whole faith is tied up in that host. And to be so flippant about it, to just hand it out to anyone, what does it say to young Catholics? We're trying to convince
we don't
Catholics
believe
said
what this is.
how important this is. And it's like, well, you're giving it to everyone. We got the gay mayor of Chicago. I don't think she's even Catholic. Attended a funeral, and the bishop gave her communion.
Yeah. That was Supich, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's a shame.
We've talked about him a couple times.
Yeah, it's frustrating because, at one time there was... Now we found out later, say during the 50s, we found out later that there was a lot of bad stuff going on. But...
Right. Already in play.
There was a public show of reverence.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, that's true.
When you wanted to raise your kid Catholic, a good Catholic, there was cultural pressure to be a good Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in the Catholic Church, if you were part of a parish, there was pressure on you to be good, behave, support things that are good, and protest things that are bad.
It was a scandal if you didn't, right?
And now it's not. And is it any wonder that we're having all the problems we're having, which the Pope seems completely oblivious to?
It's almost as if he doesn't even consider it a problem that nobody's a faithful Catholic.
Yeah.
It's, I have to believe that what he really is a, what's it called, a universalist, believes everybody's going to heaven, there's nobody in hell anyway, and so why bother?
Must.
And so he almost seems to see his role as, or the Catholic Church's role, as to simply proclaim that news and nothing else, not call people to change, not call people to repent of sins, not call people to even recognize sins.
Yeah, and if we're all going to heaven,
other
then
than
what's the
sin,
point of proclaiming that?
The only sin that seems to count with him would be the sin of claiming that somebody else might not be saved. Mm-hmm. That maybe somebody else should be denied Holy Communion, or they may be, leaping condemnation on themselves.
He hates formality, and he says he hates conformity, but he seems to conform with the libs real well.
Yeah,
and
he's a conformist,
despises people who don't conform. So as this is happening, and as the whole world is seeing this, and Biden being told, yeah, go ahead, you're a good Catholic, go ahead and take communion. This synod on synodality is starting. And, if you go to the Vatican's website, they have a playlist, a YouTube playlist concerning the synod, which right now there's only like one. I think the only thing on there is the opening mass for the synod, where Pope Francis does his little. He has the homily in there, and I watched the homily. It's like everything. There's nothing really substantial there. It's just empty talk. But
yeah,
some of it kind of gives you a window of what we're going to see coming out of this synod, because I guess the gospel was when the man stops Jesus on the road and says, "What do I have to do for life?" And Jesus ends up telling him, sell everything you have and follow me. But he keeps talking. Pope Francis made a big deal about encounter, listen, and discern. So he says we have to encounter people because Jesus encountered people. Jesus encountered people nonstop. He says we got to take time to listen to our brothers and sisters and not take refuge in formality or conformity. I don't know exactly what he means by that, but I guess don't be formal, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if as we pointed out last week, is there really that much? There's formalism in in making decisions for the church, but when it comes to encounters with priests, most people could call their local parish and get an audience. Now with the bishop, he's only got so much time, but people could, unless of course you're traditional, then you don't get that encounter.
That's what we pointed out the other way. It's all about encounter, unless you're the wrong kind of person. But this all of this goofiness it's a way to set it up so that if your encounter with somebody is a little bit wrong, for example, if in your encounter you point out that their lifestyle doesn't conform with the gospel, then you're being too formal, for example. I mean, these things are just set up as ways to undermine the real work of Christians, the real Great Commission, which is to teach all nations to observe Christ's commands.
Yeah. It's
to make disciples.
It's so backwards, and again, it's frustrating because there's so much good in the church. You can find so much knowledge in the church, and it's like this giant chest of gold that anybody can go and get at any time, and yet we have this the church leaders convincing people that there is no gold, or that this stuff over here, this lead, is really gold, and the real gold is you don't need that though. It's like it's so much. It's counter logical, and it's I don't know. It's a shame, but that's where we're at. If you have decisions to make that make abortion more available, and you don't make abortion less available, you're an excommunicate.
Well,
you're not Catholic.
You're at least sinning. You're at least sinning. There's some argumentation to be had about the exact level regarding excommunication. Mm-hmm. I think the excommunication refers specifically to procuring.
Okay.
So there's some argument to be made about whether that means in a particular instance or any sense of making it easier for somebody in a broader sense to obtain an abortion.
If I said, allow money to go and pay for an abortion, then each one of those abortions that money contributes to, isn't that procuring abortions?
Now, that's what I would say. I'd say, okay, if you're voting to allow federal funds to go towards abortions, then you're guilty of those abortions that federal funds help, and that for a Catholic would count as procuring. That for a Catholic politician would be an excommunication, or a Catholic president who signs such a bill into law. Right.
So, on the that's the number one reason that they should be denied communion, because they've publicly excommunicated themselves. But even without that, they've at least publicly sinned and are in a state of sin. They refuse to accept the teachings of the church. And in that case, they're publicly saying, I'm not at one with the church. I'm not in union. I'm cut off from Christ. But that's not going to happen. They're not going to be denied. And again,
the church is going to keep piling disgrace upon itself.
Yeah. It's
until
not like this is going to stop here.
To change things.
God is the one who reforms the church, and the church has been in bad states before. I don't know if it's ever been this bad, because I'm not a
historian.
Yeah, I'm not a historian. I just know that it seems pretty dang bad. Yeah. But the thing is, we had no idea how bad it was 15, 20 years ago. I remember thinking that we're in a boring state in the church. Like right before Pope John Paul II died, I thought, we've got a pretty good pope. It just seems like there's not a lot of turmoil. And I remember Mom, she harped on us as kids, you need to be ready for martyrdom. And I thought, I don't know.
Yeah, that didn't seem
it's
fit with the times.
Right.
Of course, now we know that it really did fit with the times. You couldn't see it. It wasn't on the surface.
Yeah. And we didn't know the church was in as much trouble as we do now. It's like, there was a lot of stuff going on, and it was really bad. And now it's like kind of out in the open, and they don't even consider it bad. But that's where we are, and our only choice is to just hang in there, keep praying, and hope that God will clean this up eventually.
Yeah, and teach your children. Do your best to teach your children what's right. Teach them to discern and to be loyal to the church, even while not giving in to the sinfulness of the bishops and priests. Yeah,
actually, you know what? The reading this Sunday was about the farmer who's put down good seeds, and an enemy comes and plants weeds. And he says that first the grain comes up, then the weeds come up. They're like, okay, should we go get the weeds? No, don't get the weeds.
Let them grow together.
And he actually, he mentions that the weeds had, the seeds had come up and bore fruit. And then there's fruit coming from the good seeds amongst this weeds. And he says, don't pick it up yet, because we don't want the, I think it's wheat that they had planted. We don't want the wheat getting caught up with all the weeds and being torn out. And right. I think the point there is that the wheat is not ready for harvest because it's still producing fruit.
Right, right.
And if you tear it up earlier, it can't produce fruit. It's good. You'll just get, right. Maybe you'll get good wheat, but the fruit won't be there. And so we're all kind of stuck here with these people who claim to be our leaders, and they're weeds. Some of them, I don't. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with saying this. Some of them are weeds, and it's you want God to do something about this, but there are still people in the church. If you go to the traditional Latin Mass, you'll see it. You'll see these families, of guys can't be more than 25 with like 3 or 4 little kids, raising their kids in the church. This is the fruit. Yeah. These guys are the wheat, and you can see all their little fruits running around, making noises and screaming.
That's right. That's their yield.
But this is fruit, and we're going to need it. And those fruits are going to make more fruits. So that's why God hasn't cleaned it up yet. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now, but I think someday it will. I think historically it'll make sense.
Right, right.
Maybe we'll never see that. But as you've said quite a few times, God writes with history. And I think true. That's what's going on now.
And history takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. And in America, in the 21st century, we would rather it not take time. We want everything right now.
Yeah, we've lost our sense of time. But yeah, God writes with history, and you can't write a chapter in one sentence. So you just got to be patient and let it happen.
Okay. I don't have too much more to say on that. More.
This is weird, because while we were looking at canon law, I came across this. This is interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So a person who is conscious of grave sin. Okay, so you know where this is going. They're not supposed to present themselves for communion. But here's what it says. A person who is conscious of grave sin is not to celebrate Mass or receive the body of the Lord. So do you think this... Is this like applying to two different cases? Like, if you're a priest, you shouldn't celebrate Mass? Or is it saying that if you know you're in grave sin, you're not even supposed to go to Mass?
I do
That's
not
weird.
think... I think that is for priests. I do not think...
It must be.
Because we're not celebrating. Well...
But it never... None of
They've
the rest
muddled
of that
the language
canon,
so much.
Yeah. None of the rest of that canon is what you would think is directed specifically at a priest. Just that one reference to celebrating Mass. It's just kind of weird. I just wanted to throw it out there. It's something to cogitate on, I guess. Maybe somebody's addressed that at some point. But it caught my eye. It's weird.
Understand that if you are in a state of mortal sin, it is yet another sin to miss Mass.
Right. So you're not supposed to... So it must be that they're talking about the priest.
So priests are not allowed to celebrate Mass if they're in a state of mortal sin, but if they're the only priest around...
Then that... here. So it says, unless... without previous sacramental confession, unless there is a grave reason and there is no opportunity to confess. In this case, remember the obligation to make an act of perfect contrition, which includes the resolution of confessing as soon as possible. So that, I think, is what would apply to a priest. If he, he's the only one, and if he has a associate pastor, and, let's say he purposely hit the sauce last night, and, okay, now he's got to confess, too hard. Now he's got to confess that. Mm-hmm. Well, instead of asking his associate pastor to say Mass for him, he would just say, I need you to hear my confession real quick.
Yeah. But that would be the only... I mean, they always pull this out. It's like, in emergencies, then this is what you do. But it's not an emergency to receive the Eucharist, as far as I know, ever.
Not for a...
There's no
Catholic.
grave reason to receive... Right.
It is for the priest if that's the scheduled Mass time, and he has to consume the host during the Mass. That's part of the Mass. So, to me, that emergency... The only other thing I could think is if you're in one of those kind of like threat of death situations, you're on the Titanic.
People say that,
and there's a priest who's saying
important?
a Mass. And this is your opportunity to receive communion before you die, or something like that. I don't know that. You're right,
but why do
it's
you
not
don't have to?
necessarily important. Even if you didn't receive communion, let's say you're not in a state of mortal sin, you don't receive communion, you still go to heaven.
Yeah.
So I would say that the grave reason could only possibly apply to a priest.
That's how I've always thought of it, because I mean, they, like, in the back of the missalettes they go over that, and I always thought, why are they telling us this? There's no grave we're at Mass. They have it every Sunday, at least, most places every day. There's no grave reason for me to take communion, and there couldn't be, even if I was about to die.
Yeah, that's true. So
okay,
anyway, okay, now I'm done.
All right. Let's see if we got some news here. I know a lot of news happened, but I only go the past week. And in the past week, there's not a whole lot going on.
Okay.
But I guess in the United Kingdom, there's kind of an energy crisis. 6 more private energy providers collapse in the United Kingdom, along with these natural gas prices shooting upward. Now it says affecting 41,000 customers. I don't know what that means, affecting. They just go to another energy company, I would think.
Maybe, unless that company
I don't think they would just
lose.
Yeah.
For delivering it and stuff.
But I don't think 41,000 people lost energy yet.
I don't know. Yeah, it could. Yeah, affecting might be that 41,000 people are in limbo as to who they're going to be receiving their energy from. It's like they don't know who they're going to write their bill to, their checks to next month. That could be what they mean by affecting.
Yeah. Okay. The United States urges its citizens to leave Ethiopia as soon as possible as rebels advance on the capital, Addis Ababa.
Okay.
One day later, U.S. government orders its embassy in Addis Ababa to evacuate non-emergency personnel due to armed conflict, civil unrest, and potential supply shortages. So, and that keeps building in Ethiopia. I don't know. You know, a lot of those African territories are under constant civil war. It's almost as bad as the Mideast, you know.
Yeah.
It's not stable. And it's a shame because a lot of these huge territories could be every bit as productive as the United States.
Mm-hmm. And prosperous.
Yeah. And it's actually that way in a lot of places in the world, all through South America, Africa.
Right.
Even Russia.
I mean, it could only happen under conditions of freedom, which is how it happened in the United States. But there's no reason that they can't also achieve the kind of prosperity that we've seen.
It's so odd that the one country that had climbed to power so fast without conquering other nations isn't the model for everyone.
Yeah.
It's so weird that people don't see, hey, let's do what they did.
Let's do what they did. Mm-hmm.
8 people are dead and hundreds more are injured during a stampede at Astroworld Music Festival in Houston, Texas.
So this must be a people stampede.
Yeah. So it's an annual music festival run by Travis Scott, an American rapper. And
that must be why I saw it. You know, when
Astroworld.
Like in your browser, like Firefox or whatever, you open up before you even type in anything like a page to go to or anything like that, and it comes up with these like news stories that it thinks you might be interested in. And I saw one. It was like tips for what to do in a crowd rush or something like that. That must be why that was there.
Huh. Okay.
I didn't read it, so I don't know what to do.
Oh, you don't know what to do in a crowd rush? I have no idea what to do in a crowd rush. Except for
I try to avoid them,
I guess.
Because I try to avoid crowds.
Yeah, I hate crowds. Yeah, I can't stand crowds. I hate being in a crowd. So Poland reports outbreaks of the H5N8 bird flu. Some at chicken farms, at turkey farms. 4 of the outbreaks occurring in the eastern part of the country. And then there's another outbreak reported in England. Doesn't say how many different farms were affected.
Okay.
So this is H5N8.
We've talked about this one too. Yeah, H5N8.
No, it was another one, I think.
I bet we've talked about H5N8.
Maybe.
But is this one bad enough that they're doing things like, okay, we've got to set up sighters and shoot down birds that are leaving the area, stuff like that?
Nobody's talking about that yet.
Watching it? Okay.
And they're calling out the birds, but it doesn't seem like they're calling out the whole, population, the whole farm. It's like the farm's still there. There's still birds there. They've just gotten rid of the sick ones. Hold on. H5N8. I finally added a search button on our... oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, we do have... That is the one we've been talking about. So that's still spreading. Because that started back in... Germany had 14,000 turkeys called.
Oh, wow. And
it started... Where else? It started in Asia. Japan and other Asian countries. Okay.
All right.
The WHO and UNICEF launch a 4-day polio vaccination campaign in Afghanistan. They are being backed by the Taliban, and they're trying to address 3.3 million children who have not been vaccinated against polio.
Is this a concern because they've seen some cases of polio, or just a general...
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, we found... Because, I mean, I know that polio hasn't been completely eradicated like smallpox, but I didn't think it was common to see it anymore.
See, I hear... I've heard the accusation that the polio scare in America was kind of trumped up. That it was getting to be a little bit of a problem, but not that big of a problem.
You mean back
to the point where they had to vaccinate everyone in America? Yeah, back in the what was it, 50s? But then again, I've heard stories. I've heard documentaries and stories from these old people talking about first their sister had it, and then by the end of the week, 2 more of their brothers or sisters had it. 3 people in one household in 1 month, and how they would all 3 end up on the iron lung. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a big deal. I know that it exists, but I guess they're going to go out and vaccinate everyone.
All right. Well,
we're over here trying to vaccinate against a cold, but
yeah,
the rest of the world is vaccinating against polio. Human rights organizations urge Singapore to cancel the execution of a 33-year-old. It says mentally impaired. I don't know if that just means that if he's like retarded or if he's just kind of stupid. Who was convicted because he was caught with 42.72 grams of heroin.
Wait a minute.
So they're going to put. He's going to be put to death
for heroin.
For, I guess, dealing
like
heroin.
Intent to distribute or whatever. I mean, that's a serious crime.
He's supposed to hang. Yeah,
but
I guess they're pretty serious about heroin in that nation.
That's not like horse thievery or anything.
Right.
Wow. All right. Well, okay.
Don't deal heroin in Singapore. Even if you're retarded, they will put you to death. So during the COP26 conference, this is United Nations Climate Change Conference. Mm-hmm. And it's 26 because there's, I guess, 26 nations taking part.
Okay.
The U.S. envoy and the Chinese envoy announced that the United States and China have reached an agreement to combat climate change. So,
what does that mean?
I don't. It means we're going to give them money while they continue to do all the things they pretend are bad for. Yeah, it's man. Chinese people are like, man, these people are jokers.
Yeah, climate change. See how much money they give us? Say it some more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see stories like this, and the John Kerry's our guy, and I wonder, is this... we go back to that question. Is this guy just stupid, or is he evil? Because it has to be one of those two.
Right.
It can't be both. Or I guess it could be both. But it can't be neither.
But it's got to be one or the other at least.
Right. And, oh well. That's all the news I got.
Okay. Well, there is a little bit of nonsense going on in the world. For one, in Georgia, have you ever done that elf on a shelf thing with your kids?
No,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do because of you. You've told me about it, and I have never seen it or anything. Yeah,
last year we did the one where people were putting them in obscene or weird situations. Okay, the elves they're kind of like they're like creepy elves. I don't know. There's something really creepy about these elves. Anyway, a judge in Marietta, Georgia, posted a mock order on Twitter banning the elves. Says it's a Christmas present to parents.
Banning the elves.
Yeah, I mean it's a joke. It's a mock thing, but as a Christmas present to parents, okay, you don't have to do this anymore. I'm banning the elves for you.
Okay. Well, I still don't understand the elf on the shelf thing. I just don't get it. It seems so stupid to me.
It is. It does seem stupid. It is stupid. It's dumb. I've never understood it. I've never done it. It's just like a game with your kids. Hey, the elf might show up anywhere. He's watching you. You better behave. And that's all it is.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's what Santa Claus was, so...
I know. It's like, well, see,
but the
his elf is here watching
like
you.
His little
Because
helper.
he sends his elves out to do it. Yeah, his helpers or whatever. Of course, with us growing up, well, okay, yeah, Santa Claus, whatever, but God's watching us all the time anyway, so, I don't care about Santa Claus.
When I was... I don't remember what age I was, but I was old enough to remember it, and I was old enough to not really believe in Santa Claus anymore. And my friend up the street told me about how they got up on Christmas morning and there were boot prints going across the rug. And they searched every boot in the house and couldn't find one that matched it. Huh. And there were a couple other little things to indicate that someone did come down their chimney, and he was trying to convince me, yes, there really was a Santa Claus, or is. And it kind of creeped me out. I don't know why. Like, I wasn't thinking along the lines of, well, maybe somebody broke into your house. I was thinking along the lines of, oh, there really is a Santa Claus who comes down your chimney. Mm-hmm. And I was more freaked out about it than anything else. Some fat dude coming down our chimney, I don't know, watching me while I sleep. And why are you watching all the kids? And just going into your home and putting stuff there? I don't know. Okay.
All right. This next one, wow, this is weird and kind of scary in a way, but in a U.S. court in the Southern District of Ohio, a judge has ruled that some hippos that I guess are kind of descended of some hippos that Pablo Escobar brought in, and then they were turned loose when he died. Well, now they're kind of becoming a problem, and so the
hippopotamuses.
Hippopotamuses, yeah. So the local jurisdiction was going to have them put down, and the Animal Legal Defense Fund got involved, filed an application on behalf of the hippos. Anyway, the long and short of it is that this court has ruled that these hippos are persons, legally speaking. Oh. So,
but you said this is in Ohio?
It's sad. Unless Ohio has
Southern District of Ohio.
Southern District of Ohio. U.S. District Court ruling for the Southern District of Ohio. Now, it might not be in Ohio because U.S. District Courts, the districts aren't confined to one state.
Mm-hmm. So
the Southern District of Ohio Court might include Ohio and Kentucky and Tennessee and parts of West Virginia. I don't know what all.
Yeah. But wait, okay, first of all, hippos aren't indigenous to South America, right?
To South America? No, I
wait a minute.
I don't know.
Are these hippos in America?
Yeah.
Where?
They were brought
in Ohio?
Yeah. Well, maybe not. Hold on here. Let me read this a little more carefully.
This is such a weird because it's Pablo Escobar. I thought he was a South American. He's a Colombian drug lord.
Yeah, exactly. So he imported 4 hippos. They were set free. Since then, they've increased their numbers to more than 80, and they're wreaking havoc. So what happened? Okay, here's what it is. In July, a lawsuit was filed in Colombia to try to save the hippos, but even though Colombia's laws allow lawsuits on behalf of animals, or allow actions on behalf of animals, the Colombian legal system can't compel someone in the United States to produce documents supporting the case of the animals. And I guess that there's some testimony that they need from people in Ohio in order to bolster their case that the hippos shouldn't be put down.
I
So
see.
a judge in Ohio, or a judge in the District Court of Southern Ohio, has ruled that it just initially, just to establish their standing in court to request the compulsion of the testimony or whatever, that the hippos are, for legal purposes, persons.
We've got some really stupid judges, first of all.
We've got some really bad judges.
Second of all, can you imagine taking any ecosystem and inserting an animal that big and dangerous
And just letting it run.
and not trying to stop that? I mean, we've seen what happens when you bring in these invasive species like just plants, honeysuckle.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes over everything. What if we went down to, Red River Gorge and installed elephants?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the
thrive.
problems that would come from that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just something like hippos. They should have put them all down. Period.
Yeah.
And now they're wild, and it's like
So what they're trying to do is
they're
instead
dangerous.
of just putting them down outright, which I don't know why. I guess there's, I don't know. There's people who think animals are people. Anyway, instead of just putting them down outright, they're sterilizing them so that they can live out the rest of their lives doing damage, but they can't make more hippos.
I don't know. That's just, people are just so stupid.
Weird. Yep. Okay. So, normally when you think about a woman being harassed by the police for what she wears, you think of one thing. Well, in this case, a woman in Florida was warned by the police not to wear a certain Halloween costume. Apparently, there's a building like a condominium project that the woman opposes, and she was thinking there's this sort of, I guess, annual Halloween block party, in her that she's on or whatever. And so she was thinking of wearing a costume to, like, dressed up like a condominium or something like that to bring attention to the issue. Well, the police are telling her that if she does that, she's going to be arrested for protesting without a license. Or without a permit. So, anyway, I don't think it's really going to go anywhere. She intends to wear the costume anyway. And a constitutional law professor at Nova Southeastern University said that the police
I was going to say, I can't imagine after that, I can't imagine not wearing it.
I know.
Once I've been told that, I mean, it's like,
really?
Oh,
okay.
I don't care what happens. I'm wearing that thing.
Yes.
You are going to arrest me. I'm not going to not wear it.
Well, that's what she said. She said, I'm going to wear it. I'm just not going to bring my kids because I don't want my 12-year-old to see me getting harassed by the police.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So,
I don't know. I just got that streak of...
especially with something so stupid like that.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's so dumb. It's like, who gave that order?
Yeah.
Was it the cop? I
think it was just a cop who himself... I don't know. Maybe he's invested in the condo project. Or maybe he wants the condo project to happen for some reason.
I mean, talk about... these mini tyrants that we've been talking about police. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I don't know. Did I ever tell you about my daughter being involved in a writing group at school?
No.
Okay. So, my daughter is in high school, and she said, hey, I joined a writing group. I said, okay, cool.
Good.
And then she said, we're trying to come up with ideas for our project, whatever we're going to do. I said, you know what you should do? I said, you should all write short stories and make them completely fictionalized, but have the teachers be the main characters. You know? various teachers throughout the school. And, they could be murder mysteries, they could be sci-fi, whatever.
Right.
They could be love affairs, but all of them will have teachers as the main characters. No students, just teachers. And she thought that was a great idea, and she brought it up, and everybody thought it was a great idea. And I said, you know what you could do? Once you've, print on demand is so easy nowadays. Once you've got all your projects handed in, then you can sell it, to raise money for the group or whatever.
Yeah.
And you could order a bunch and sell it in the hallway, or you could even sell it on Amazon as a Kindle version. It's easy to do this, and I'll show you how. And then she says that, at first even the other teachers were excited about it, but I guess somebody complained, and the vice principal or whoever came in and said, I don't think so, guys. It just sounds like a way to cause trouble.
Cause trouble?
Yeah. Or
So
maybe insult. Somebody might be insulted. I don't know.
Oh.
But, I mean, at that point, I don't care what it cost. I would have been down and determined to make it happen.
Yeah.
Even if everybody dropped out, I would have written a bunch of them, and I would have sold them.
Yeah.
Because they can't stop you from doing that. But she didn't do it, and the other students didn't do it. And I thought, where is the sense of rebellion in this country? Why are all these high school kids
healthy resistance
were told no and they just did it?
To stupid restrictions.
Yeah, it made no sense to me. And I was saddened, and I think my daughter probably would have done it anyway, and she would have been all for doing it anyway, except she's kind of shy and she didn't want to go against the rest of the group. That's why she didn't do it. She had the urge to rebel. She just was too shy. But it blows my mind that they didn't do it, because I would have stopped at nothing. Even if I had to print them out myself on a copier and staple them together, those stories would have gotten written and published.
Yeah.
And if somebody tells me I can't wear a protest costume, I am wearing a protest costume. Oh well.
All right. Will, last story. And there's a story behind the story. This is in wavy.com. Has the story of a man who was rescued after some days trapped in the wall of an historic New York theater. Now, they kind of mentioned this almost like in passing, as though it's not a part of the story.
Wait a minute, but okay, hold on. He was inside the wall.
Yes, trapped inside the wall. Fire officials said the unidentified man is believed to have been imprisoned in the wall of the landmark theater for 2 to 3 days. Now, here's the thing. He was naked when they found him.
Wait a minute. This sounds an awful lot like another
It was another story where somebody was trapped between, like, 2 buildings. You remember that? The buildings were real close. And we were making up stories. Yeah, she was naked. Okay, how did that... Well, this one seems pretty obvious to me. I mean, I'm guessing that this is a active theater, not like, because I don't think people do urban archaeology in the nude. I think this guy was like crawling through the vents to try to get up over and peek into the girls' restroom. And he fell. Okay. It says they think he climbed into a crawl space and fell into a void in the wall of the men's bathroom.
Okay, or he was maybe climbing into like another part of the building where he's going to like steal stuff, maybe.
Naked?
Well, that's the thing. Even if he was climbing over to the girls' bathroom, why would he be naked? I mean...
Well, that's true. That doesn't quite make
doing
sense.
Any kind of physical activity when you're naked is very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's weird.
It makes you get scratched up and hurt.
Yeah, that's true. That's just weird. Anyway, I don't know.
Maybe
if anybody has any ideas for stories of why this guy ended up trapped in a wall naked, Send them in. We'll air them.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
and that is all the nonsense I have.
All right. In that case, we will talk about a saint.
Okay.
Saint Afra. A-F-R-A. Afra. What do you think?
Saint Afra. Let me see here.
A-F as in Frank, R-A.
A woman died during the Diocletian
also known
persecution.
as Saint Afra the Penitent.
Okay. Afra works.
Okay. Saint Afra died in 304 under the, like you said, Diocletian persecution. She entered into the world of prostitution at a pretty early age. She was introduced to it by her mother. Her mother and her and 3 servants, they believe, worked in the temple of Venus. Saint Narcissus, no, that would be Narcissus. Narcissus? Narcissus.
Narci, Narcissus.
Narcissus. Okay. Saint Narcissus, then was, he was Bishop of Girona, Spain.
You know what? It might be Narcissus on so you've got Narcissus. On Wikipedia, they've got it Narcissus.
I wonder if I just spelled it wrong. I thought that I cut and pasted, but maybe I didn't. Maybe, hold on, let me find it on Wikipedia now.
If I Google what you said, it doesn't come up anywhere.
Narcissus.
It's Saint Narcissus, or the Bishop Narcissus.
Narcissus.
Okay.
Yeah, Bishop Narcissus, now Saint Narcissus, I believe.
Okay.
He took up lodging in one of the spots where they were. He didn't know who they were, but they were kind of drawn to his holiness and his, I guess, holy men attract women sometimes. And eventually all 5 of them converted. This is Saint Afra, her mother, and 3 servants. They kind of, the officials came looking for the bishop, and Afra buried him under some flax and helped him escape. He got through it, and she spent the rest of her life, she looked in horror on her past sins, and she sought to make up for it, especially by serving the poor. But eventually she was discovered because she was trying to convert people, and this is in Augsburg in, I don't even know where, this is in Germany, I guess.
Okay, in Bavaria, yeah.
It's a city in Bavaria, yeah.
Augsburg in Bavaria.
So, she's brought up before a judge named Gaius, who told her to sacrifice to the gods, because it's better to live in sin than to die in torment. And she replies to him, "The sins that I have committed before I knew that true God are enough. So I can't do now what you're commanding. I never will do it. So it would be adding a new insult to my God." She's admitting that she had sinned before, and those sins were enough to have lived, Gaius tells her once again to go to the temple and sacrifice, and she says, "My temple is Jesus Christ, who I keep before my eyes always, and to whom I confess my sins every day. Since I'm unworthy to offer him any other sacrifice, I'm anxious to sacrifice myself, in order that this body with which I have offended him will be purified by torments. This reflection makes me suffer willingly." Gaius points out that since she had offended the Christian God and has nothing to expect from him, she should sacrifice to the other gods. And she says, "My Lord Jesus Christ has said that he descended from heaven to save sinners. We know that sinful women have washed his feet with her tears and obtained from him the forgiveness of all her offenses. And moreover, that he never rejected sinful creatures, nor even publicans, but on the contrary, condescended to talk to them and even eat with him. Gaius tempts her by saying she would enrich herself and gain the favor of nobles and riches. She said, I renounce that deplorable gain and look upon it with horror. That which I had, I have cast from me and given to the poor, imploring them to accept it. How then can I consent to earn it again? Gaius points out that the Christian God himself saw her as unworthy. He said that she called out to him in vain because he would have nothing to do with a common prostitute like herself. She said, it's true, I am unworthy of this name, but my God, who doesn't choose people according to their merits, but according to his own goodness, has been pleased to accept me and make me a participator of his name. Then Gaius asked when God had done this favor for her, and she said, I know that God hasn't cast me out since he gave me the strength to confess his name, and I feel hope within me that I can yet obtain the pardon of my sins. Gaius says that it is a foolish story and told her to sacrifice to his gods because they alone could save her at this point. She said, my salvation depends on Jesus Christ alone, who, while hanging on the cross, promised heaven even to a robber that had confessed his sins. He says, if you don't sacrifice, I'll have you stripped and whipped in public and you'll be shamed. She says, I am ashamed only of my sins. And he says, I am ashamed of having wasted all this time on you. I condemn you to be tortured and burned alive. And she said, let this, my body, which has been the instrument of so many sins, undergo every torment, but let my soul not be contaminated by sacrificing to demons. And he said, we ordain that Aphra, a prostitute who has declared herself to be a Christian and has refused to sacrifice to the gods, be burned alive. So she was taken to an island and burned alive. Her 3 servants had kind of followed through the trial and then stood on the shore of the island as they watched her being burned and watched her expire in the flames. They went and told her mother, and the 4 of them went to where she was burned. They took her remains and took them to the family burial spot. Gaius the judge heard about this, and he arrested anyone who had visited her tomb and threw them, which is, I think, 4 women and a couple of priests, into a building and burnt that down. So all 5 women now have died as martyrs.
Wow.
And that is her story. She is the patron of martyrs, converts, and penitent women.
Wow, she's quite
point that out. She was so unwilling to be a part of idolatry, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he tempted her in every way possible, and she just wouldn't do it. We have a pope bringing idols into our Vatican.
I mean, just think, in order for her to have that level of understanding that she showed, how detailed Bishop Narcissus' teaching had to have been.
Right.
And thorough.
Because she kept answering him. Mm-hmm. And she had all the right answers. And, she must have, aside from having learned this stuff, often contemplated it.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I keep coming up with these, these martyrs from the first few centuries, and it's like a never-ending supply of stories, And some of them have similarities, but they've all got these little things, Mm-hmm. And whereas this woman was a prostitute who worked at the Temple of Venus and ended up becoming a Christian martyr.
Yeah, and
inspiring stuff.
not just her, but her mother, and then their servants,
Right.
all martyred
Right.
too.
And
Wow.
as a matter of fact, her servants were willing to die when they had been put into the thing. I think they may have been given a chance to get out, but they said we had participated in her sin, and now we participate in her martyrdom.
Oh, okay.
So they all understood that they were being martyred.
Mm-hmm. Feast August 7th, sometimes listed as August 5th. I wonder if that's in the Catholic calendar. Probably not the modern Catholic calendar, but I wonder if it's in the traditional calendar.
I think it... I know she's venerated in the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm. You know what?
Major shrine at St. South Old City of Augsburg, Bavaria, but I don't know if it's a former abbey, St. Ephraim's Abbey in Augsburg in Germany. I think that's a Roman Catholic church.
Let's see here.
They're calling it an imperial abbey.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think so. What's an imperial abbey, though?
I don't know, other than maybe it was an abbey founded by a king or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so she doesn't appear, at least as in 1960, she's not on either August 5th or August 7th. Were those the dates? Yeah. In the divine office, as the saint in the divine office. So, but she is venerated in the Catholic Church, and another example for us all.
Yeah, Saint Afra, pray for us.
Saint Afra, pray for us.
All right, that's all we've got, I think.
All right, well,
and folks, think about what we said, and we will see you next week. And as always,
circle the beads. Bye, everyone.
Bye.